So give me 9 minutes and I'll walk you through how I think about the outdoor recreation economy. And it, of course, begins with the recreation assets that are in our communities, our parks, our trails, and our open space, and the people who are drawn to them, whether they are people living in the region already or they're tourists coming in to visit. They're biking and walking and moving between the towns through which our trails pass or the towns that are gateways to our public lands. And assume for a moment that this family, after enjoying their walk, went to New Freedom Borough, which is just beyond the scope of this picture, and they stepped a few feet off the trail and ended up at Seven Sports Bar, which is a popular restaurant with great outdoor dining in New Freedom Borough, which is one of our York County trail towns here in York County, Pennsylvania. And the family sat down and said, let's have some Brussels sprouts. Maybe mom and dad said, let's have a margarita. And we know from talking to Seven that the average customer there spends about $18 per visit. And we know from cell phone data that 2,241 people last year came off the Heritage Rail Trail and went to Seven, which means that the relationship between the Heritage Rail Trail and Seven, this sports bar, is about $40 million in revenue every year just for this one small business. But we know that there's countless families like this one who come to the trail every year, both from within the region and from afar. You can see the density in this heat map showing home locations of trail users around the corridor of the trail in south central Pennsylvania. And we can also tell from cell phone data the top 50 businesses which trail users visit before or after their visit. And you can see a concentration of this visitation along the corridor of the Heritage Rail Trail, including clusters in our York County trail towns. In fact, there's 155,000 visits, which we can document, from people living just within the region. And we know from intercept surveys that they spend, on average, about $20 per visit, which means that just from locals, there's about $3 million every year in consumer spending generated from that local patronage of businesses while using the trail. But we also know from cell phone data that 12% of all the folks visiting the trail are actually coming from more than 50 miles away, meaning they fit our definition of a tourist. And so last year there were 20,000 tourist visits to the Heritage Rail Trail. These tourist visits are spending more in the region because they're spending on lodging and gas, more meals while they're here. So they're spending about $388 per visit. And that means tourists last year generated over $8 million in consumer spending in those same communities, which means that just in consumer spending alone from locals and tourists, this one outdoor asset in York County is generating more than $11 million a year that's spent locally. We also know, however, that the Heritage Rail Trail is just one of literally dozens of outdoor assets, including county parks, state parks, other trail networks, businesses like bike shops and hospitality and leisure and service businesses, bed and breakfast and restaurants that are spread across York County and have close relationships as part of this outdoor economy ecosystem. And we know that individual assets within the county, like state parks, collectively generate $44 million just in state park spending alone from the people that visit them. We know that there's 5,240 York County residents employed in the outdoor recreation sector, and that their employment generates 135 million in wages, much of which is spent locally on their families' needs. And we also know that York County is just one small piece of a Commonwealth-wide ecosystem around the outdoor economy. Lancaster County is highlighted on this map, but you can see clusters in south central Pennsylvania of these outdoor businesses, and in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh and in Erie, but really across all of the rural landscapes of Pennsylvania as well, which means that Pennsylvania's outdoor recreation economy is truly a Commonwealth-wide strength that is composed of nearly 8,000 individual businesses that are engaged in the outdoor economy, generating $19 billion in GDP, sustaining 168,000 jobs. And of course, those jobs are generating a whole lot of salary and wages and tax revenue for local and state government. If we zoom out further to the region in which Pennsylvania is, in which the Heritage Rail Trail is, this is the Chesapeake Gateways area. And when we look at these states that are covered by the Chesapeake Gateways and the Chesapeake watershed, you can see a cumulative outdoor recreation impact of $45.4 billion and more than 400,000 folks across this region employed in the outdoor recreation sector. And the states that benefit from that, even from relatively small states like Delaware up to very robust outdoor economies like Virginia and Pennsylvania. When you zoom out even further and look nationwide, you can see that this outdoor economy as a contribution to GDP is widespread across every state in the nation. And is significant not just in very dynamic, mixed economies like Pennsylvania, but also in the outdoor recreation and outdoor focused economies of, for example, the West. And cumulatively, this GDP adds up to $1.2 trillion in value added to the nation's economy and 5 million jobs within the outdoor recreation sector. That seems like a huge number, and it is, but I would argue that the impact goes even further. When we look at how businesses are choosing where to make their new investments, where to locate a new facility, where to expand, they are increasingly citing quality of life as a top reason for locating in a region. And areas that have high quality of life will have these high quality trails, parks, and open space, walkable downtowns, along with all the other elements of quality of life. And so, if recreation and access to recreation is influencing those business decisions, and those business decisions each year result in $230 billion of manufacturing investment in new facilities, then we can start to see how influential these outdoor assets can be on things that have nothing to do with recreation, at least at face value. The reason why these businesses care so much about quality of life is because of needing to attract and retain a talented workforce. And when we ask folks, where do you want to live? How do you decide where to live? Across generations, across Democrat, Republican, Independent, across folks of different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, you see high quality access to high quality parks and recreation opportunities as being important or very important to how people are deciding where to choose to live. And that is one of the most profound economic decisions in America. And it results in a nearly $5 trillion of investment in homes and selling homes across the nation every year. And so, although those numbers can be overwhelming and incredibly complex, it's worth remembering that this outdoor economy really begins with people recreating in their backyard or choosing to visit high quality outdoor assets across the country. And so we need that infrastructure in place if we want to have these trillions of dollars of economic impact.